Hey, this is Brian Yellow, and number 19 on Origin Stories on Creativity. I got to speak with Evan Waterman. He's a full stack developer, uh, British Columbian graphic novelist, writer, pretty selfless guy. He has written a guide to writing comics. His selfless exploration of this medium isn't for commercial gain. He's writing this guide to give to anybody who wants to write comics, graphic novels. That's pretty cool. He is writing this graphic novel with people he's found on Reddit. It's fantastic to not only be interested in developing art for the sake of art, but to give back to the community at large, but to give back to people who also might not know exactly how to begin, but it's wordless, basically, to explain what this guy is trying to develop. A lot of contact information. He was very free with the resources. He's given a library of books that I highly recommend checking out. A library of resources that I highly recommend checking out. A archive of comic book scripts if you want to see formatting. It was a very interesting conversation. A little bit of technical difficulty to begin with. We had some connection issues. Hopefully I ironed those out during the editing process, but very neat guy. BrianYellow.com. Check out my website. Brian Yellow is how you follow me on Twitter. But I think that's pretty much all I have for an intro. And here's Evan Waterman.
Evan, you are a graphic artist, are you not?
Yes, I make comics.
What got you into it?
Well, I mean, I guess the first comic I made, I was in grade 4, and me and my friends who made little mini comics, and I don't know, just ever since then, I just really just liked making comics and just liked the medium, and it's just like a cool way I think that people can express themselves. It's kind of like a combination between like novels and movies. It's like a happy medium. So I've always just really liked it.
What were you doing when you were younger? What kind of comics were you drawing?
Oh, they were like little goofy things, mostly like James Bond ripoffs, that kind of thing.
There's nothing wrong with that. Did you keep them as like souvenirs of your past? Yeah, you have them like bound up, or you ever scan them?
Yeah,
put them
definitely.
on the
I have them in a safe space.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
How do you think you compare to the child that was making graphic art back then?
I like to think that my comics are a little better now.
No, I checked out your art.
Now I've got
it's some pretty cool stuff.
An actual artist on the team making.
Oh no! So I thought so. When I was looking at Facebook, are you the artist or are you the writer?
I'm the writer. So
you're the writer.
I have an artist team, yeah, working on the comic with me.
Can you tell me a little bit about the story that you're writing?
Only the rich had superpowers. So it kind of like explores, it kind of explores that concept and like really dives into some social issues and like kind of deconstructs the superhero genre a little bit, because superheroes are really big right now, at least in the movies.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of like the idea of, well, what does that really mean? Like, how does that reflect us as a society and that kind of stuff? So,
how much depth have you actually developed so far?
Yeah, so the first issue is fully written and it's been inked. So I'm just waiting for that one to get colored. The rest of the issues, there's going to be 6 issues total, and those have been mostly scripted. And we'll see after the first issue gets released, we'll start scheduling releases for the later issues.
Now, when you script an issue of a, do we call them comic books or do we call them graphic novels? I don't want to insult you. I want to call them comics because.
Yeah, I'm happy with either.
Okay.
I think the technical thing is like graphic novels or like the collection. So if you think of like a Watchmen or something, which is like a collection of like 12 issues into one book, that would be like a graphic novel.
Okay.
I care personally, you can call it whatever you want.
So, okay, let's just call them a book. So when you're scripting a book, are you going it the way of Stan Lee, where you tell your artist, I want you to put this panel and do it however you want? Or are you actually getting into the nitty gritty of what you exactly want to see, panel by panel, box by box?
It really depends on the scene. Like I like to personally go really in depth with my descriptions, and I'll like, oh, okay, I want to include this element, and it would be like framed this way, and we'll see this, but at the same time, to let the artist express themselves creatively, and I don't want to limit their expression by saying you have to frame this exactly like this, and this guy's like the 45-degree angle looking down at him, or like I don't go that far because I want my artist to be able to like really explore the scene, explore the panel, and let them their own. So some of my panel descriptions can be super short. They'll just be like a couple lines, like this person is doing this, and I'll let the artist just totally take over, and that's given me some really that I didn't even plan for. So it's really
that's really interesting. So in terms of writing, yeah, I know that you are a fiction writer too. Do you find that you're missing that element of teamwork when you put your prose on paper? Do you enjoy the aspect of being alone with your fiction?
Yeah, it's a little different in that regard because it's just me, right? No one to like that I'm collaborating with. But like I participate in a lot of kind of writing groups, so I like to bounce my ideas off people constantly, because I feel like if I'm just locked in a room and I'm just writing on my own, I'll never pick up on the mistakes that I don't notice. And so I really like the idea of like working with people, collaborating, bouncing my ideas off people just to see what works and give me a new perspective on things.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So when you're writing, you don't really follow the first draft, second draft, third draft. You just want to push ahead of
I'm a pretty heavy outliner. So when I'm writing, like I'll plan everything out like really heavily, make sure everything kind of lines up the way I'm thinking, and then as like I'll go through a first, maybe in a second. Like with this comic, I put in like crazy amount of drafts. Like I don't even know how many times I've iterated over this thing. But I've also in between those steps, I've kind of shared it with people and asked for feedback, because I can iterate over something 100 times, but there's always going to be those things that I just won't pick up on that someone else will, like, no problem, right?
How do you think the influences of you're a coder by trade, though, aren't you? You're a front end designer.
I do development work, so I work in like computer security right now, and we're developing like websites for people to manage their security for businesses and that kind of stuff.
And that's like a totally separate type of writing too, isn't it? Do you consider that writing, or?
It's interesting because like when it comes to coding, at least for like a really big system, there's like a heavy planning phase, and you kind of make sure you're planning the development so that you do it properly, because once you lay it out, it's kind of hard to.
It's kind of hard to go back and like pick those mistakes out.
Yeah. So I guess that's probably a big reason as to why I'm such a heavy outliner. It's like I like to plan things, like to make sure it's gonna go the way I expect it to the first time. Of course, it's
very interesting. I am messy. I'm really messy. I just throw things out there, like mud splattering against the wall. Then I go back in and pick out the designs that I like. Oh, that looks like a rooster, and I clean out the rooster design.
No, I think
like I'm still picking out mistakes on my, I just had to scrap a whole website design because I had malware in it. I have no clue how I had malware. How'd you end up with malware?
I definitely think there's benefits to like the kind of discovery writing approach too, whereas like you just toss ideas out and see what sticks. I think it helps it make it feel more natural that way. And I try to incorporate that at least a little bit in my writing, because I don't want it to feel like completely scripted and just like by the numbers, like this happens, then this happens, then this happens.
Are you able to, I mean, I imagine, I know there's a left and a right hemisphere of the brain, and that certain people are able to access one or the other. Are you able to do either or at will? Or does your artist have that other part that you lack? Or are you able to grab hold of both of the atmospheres or hemispheres? Or the picker versus the gardener? You know what I'm saying?
Overlap between the two. Yeah. I used to want to be an artist, and I used to like want to draw these pictures and like draw the like comics and stuff. And like I still have that sense of like artisticness, I guess. And so when I do my writings, I like to visualize it. I'd say I'm a very visual person. So whenever I write out my scripts, I always write little thumbnails of what I think the panels will look like. And so I'll sometimes, when I'm working with my artist, I'll like, hey, for this, what do you think? And then he'll come back to me and he'll say, hey, I like this idea. Maybe we can switch this around, and then he'll send me his. So like, I like being involved in multiple steps in the process, but I know my strengths and the strengths of my artist, and it's a collaborative project.
How long have you known your artist?
I actually met him online. It's totally new. I didn't know him at all. We just met on there's a group for finding. And
is that the collaborative subreddit? It's raining in Vancouver, isn't it?
Book collabs, that's the subreddit.
Oh yeah, you hooked me up with it. I haven't checked it out as much as I want to.
Yeah. I think it's totally cool to just like post, I'm looking, this is what I'm looking for, and then I'll get responses for a whole bunch of people like, hey, I'm interested in your project. Let's work on this. Here's my profile. And it's just, I think it's just a cool way to find like collaborators and just other people interested in comics. And you just see all these people posting out their new projects. It's just awesome.
So what's the future for comics right now? What do you think's going to happen?
Future comics?
Yeah.
I think comics are becoming more digital. You see like a lot of web comics coming up, and they're super popular web comics. Like I'm looking to kickstart my comic, and on Kickstarter, the biggest comics, like almost every single time, are ones that have been web comics first. Those are the ones that are raising like $100,000 to print out one book. And I think that people are really, really appreciating like the digital medium, but at the same time, physical books are still super appealing to people. Like me personally, I always buy the physical copies if that's an option.
Do you really?
It just feels better to own.
You like the paper. You like flipping it. You like looking at the
I don't know. There's just something about it that holding the book that makes you want to keep it in my hands. So I think it's not that comics or that matters is switching to just digital. I think it's just another alternative way of accessing these stories, and I think that's just a good thing. It's broadly available to different people.
I was speaking with another author. She said one of the great investments you can make is children's books, because you can't digitalize a children's book. You have to have the pages. You have to flip it back and forth. That's really interesting. What is in terms of the actual paper, in terms of the digitalized medium, in terms of the Kickstarter, where's the audience coming from? There are so many.
Sorry, you're cutting out.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was asking about the audience. Where's it coming from, though? I mean, there are so many people making comic books and comics and graphic novels. don't you feel like there's an just
Sorry, you're cutting
drowning?
out a little bit there.
No kidding. Where's the audience? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. So you're asking like where the audience is for like
There
digital
you
comics?
go. Yeah, I am.
Okay. Yeah. So like it's interesting when you're trying to find fans for like a digital comic, because it's not like a comic store where you can just walk up and be like, hey, all these people are directly looking for comics, right? So sell to a comic store and then people are gonna pick up your book, right? But like for digital, there's these like bunch of platforms. There's like an art or like Twitter, and then there's like Webtoons, a whole bunch of digital platforms that people can post their comics to, that are just people go to directly to look for comics. But I see a lot of people like hosting them on their websites, and I think it's a more go out and get your fans kind of platform, as opposed to putting your book in a shop where people will come find you. You really have to go out and you have to reach the fans yourselves. And when it comes to digital,
Well, that's a really great. That brings up a really great question. How do you get your fans? How are you getting your fans?
well, what I first started off is you gather your core group of people. So I made a list of 100 people that I know would support me, and a majority of those people are just going to be friends and family, right? And so you gather that group. I started a Facebook page, I've started a Twitter, and I've got an email list. And I think that email list is the most important piece, where you get all these people subscribing. You can send them like a weekly email, and they'll just all automatically get that email and see like content updates, like, hey, I've done this page, this page, this page. The Kickstarter is going to launch in a week. I hope to see you there. And then once you get that Kickstarter, and once you start building your audience, that's when external people are going to start coming in. They're just going to start noticing it, and then it's going to start growing on its own. So I think, yeah, the first steps are really building that audience yourself, going out and finding the people that are interested. And then once you have a bit of a following, it's going to start developing on its own.
Yeah, I've seen Kickstarter suggest that, and Patreon suggested also go to your friends and family. And then I think of the crack dealer model. They say don't deal to your friends and family. So I wonder which one's more logical.
Yeah,
I don't know. I just don't. I feel so uncomfortable of going through my friends and family. I just don't want to do it. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, totally. Like I hate to be the person who's like, please give me money.
Give me money.
That I can make these things.
Like, no, I don't want to give you money.
Yeah. Yeah, I listened to a podcast about marketing your comic, and on this podcast, it's Comics Launch, by the way, for anyone who's interested. Cool. And in this comic, he talks about, okay, there's two types of people that you're going to sell your comics to. One is the people that are already, actually there's three types of people. There's one is the people who are already interested, and for them you just need to be like, hey, here's my comic. And then there's the people who are like kind of interested, who you just need kind of a push, and those are probably going to be like your friends, your extended family. And then there's going to be the people who have no idea at all, and those people are the people you're going to do your main marketing for. So there's like, I like to see it as like two different divides. There's like the friends and family divide, and then there's this total stranger divide. And there's like, you have to market yourself differently for the different people. And so I'm like, for this first comic, since I've just started releasing it, I've stuck to the friends and family divide. And then once I have something that I can show out to like total strangers, then I'll like switch my marketing approach to be for more of like a, hey, I'm actually trying to sell this to you and pitching it to you sort of deal.
You know what's really interesting about you is that you have great art and you have a very interesting story. I mean, I'm not trying to blow smoke or anything. I found your art incredibly compelling, and your story is incredibly unique. And I mean, you don't really get the story too much in what I saw on your Facebook. I would love to see that, I don't know, enhanced a little bit.
Yeah,
I mean,
definitely.
you don't really see it as much. I mean, what you're telling me, what I saw, I don't get it as much. But what you're telling me, I'd love to see more of, because it's interesting.
Yeah,
you know, rich people have the superpowers. How does that play out? How is it?
Yeah.
Because I mean, that means the super people and the super bad guys, they have superpowers. I'd love to see that
Yeah.
manifested. And the art's just really fantastic. You got to
Yeah.
compliment the guy who's doing it because it's really
Oh,
good.
definitely. Yeah. He's great. He's super, super good too. Like I'll give him this idea and he'll like, hey, why don't we twist it like this? And I was like, well, how about this? And then he's really, really great to collaborate on because he'll just throw out these ideas that I didn't even think about. And he's just like in awesome ways. But yeah,
That's really cool. And the fact that you guys are strangers up to
yeah.
3 months ago, and that's just the, Reddit gets a bad rap, but there's a lot of people like you guys meeting and, joining forces.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like any part of the internet. There's the dark areas that.
Yeah.
But,
we're not going to mention 4chan by name.
Yeah, but I think I really lucked out with this guy and his talents. But yeah, it's interesting. I think the topic is something that a lot of people would be interested in, but I've been kind of careful of just shoving that in people's faces because I feel like a lot of people aren't necessarily like going to comics to think about like social issues or something. They're like, I want to see this cool thing, like these two bad guys beat the crap out of each other or something.
I don't know. What got my interest in comics recently was the Lewis and Clark adaptation. That was a few years ago. I'm not even sure if they're still doing it from Image.
Yeah.
Do you know the book that I'm talking about? I'm not even sure if they're still making it. It's basically a fantasy story of Lewis and Clark's exploration across the United States, filled with fantasy creatures and whatnot. It just captured me. So I started reading it a little bit. Yeah.
That sounds awesome.
I just looked at the book. It had like, a swamp thing on it. I was like, oh, I'm done. I'm sold. So I bought like 6 or 7 issues, and they stopped making it for a few months and I stopped buying it. But, I bought the physical copy of the book. I'm a horrible torrenter. So, I mean, I would have downloaded it, but I didn't. I actually bought the actual physical copy of the book.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's, art sold me, and art will sell you too. To think of like the social issue though, wasn't it Captain Marvel or something?
Yeah.
Is the Islamic woman the girl?
Yeah.
How does that sell?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's like diversity is a really big thing in comics right now. Like people are really pushing for that, and they're trying to get like more diverse characters from like different perspectives, but the big thing is they're like also looking for like diverse creators. Like I know a lot of people are trying to like push, at least in the indie scene, for more female creators, and like that's like a huge thing right now. I mean, in mainstream, like the Marvel and the DC, they're getting a lot of flack for like having all like white, all male creators, right? So I think diversity is like super important and super big thing right now, and like being just like a white guy myself, like I'm kind of like torn a little because I want to write these cool stories about like diversity. Like my main characters, like 2 of them are these like Egyptian sisters, right? And here I am, just this white guy writing this story about them, right? And
you get accused of like cultural what is it called? Cultural taking somebody else's culture.
Yeah, like I don't I don't want to come across as the guy who's like, hey, look at this shiny thing. Like I genuinely want to like express these different cultures.
I do find it fascinating though, because the whole idea of trickle down economics, and you've got these superheroes that are rich that have all the power, telling the poor people how to live their lives or saving them from themselves, basically. It's a fascinating idea that could resonate. You already know that, or you wouldn't be writing it, so that's not the point. But
I think like the big idea that I wanted to do is, okay, this is a topic that I'm super interested in, like social inequality and like status. But I'm like, okay, how do I frame this in an interesting way? Because if I just write about that, I might as well write just like a nonfiction book, right? And
do the lower economic structures in your stories have a way to express themselves also? Do they get to fight the superheroes in some kind of way?
Yeah, yeah,
Or are they
definitely.
kind of like, okay, let's,
Yeah, so there's I throw in a lot of different perspectives in the story. So the first book starts off from the perspective of just the heroes because there's a whole bunch of them. But I like within the team themselves, there's already a lot of diversity, diverse perspectives, diverse opinions. But
Mhm.
as the story goes on, you start seeing a perspective from just this kid who's raised in this poor family, and he's like his family is just of the lower class, right? And you're seeing the consequences of a society where, like, yeah, the superpowers, people with superpowers, they have all the jobs, because if you had to choose between hiring someone with superpowers and someone without, like, you pick the person with superpowers because they can just do the job better. Like someone who has
Mhm.
super strength, you'd hire them in a warehouse who can like lift these boxes, and you like save money on equipment. Or
Mhm.
like in the first issue, there's this waitress who can she has telekinesis powers, and she can like float stuff over to people, and this just makes the job easier. So why wouldn't you hire that person?
Yeah.
That's how like the inequality kind of plays into the world, and you see like the consequence of that when I like there's this one character whose family is directly affected by that, and they feel like, well, I want to have this change in the world. Like I want to do something, but I can't because I'm stuck in this social
I'm
class.
normal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I'm
I'm
poor.
normal.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's very interesting
yeah,
because I see one of the books that you said was a major influence on you was Marvel's, and that is an amazing, not just artistically, but like the story of the
oh yeah,
reporter watching the superheroes destroy his city. It's a great piece of comic book history. It's great
yeah,
literature. It's really well done. And
yeah.
I don't think I've actually read the sequel. I can't remember for sure, but the first one's just amazing.
You mean
Really well done
ruins?
piece of. Was it called Ruins, the second one?
Yeah, that one. It's kind of
I
like
didn't read it.
yeah. So Marvels, I really really like Marvels because it kind of takes a look at the development of like Marvel's superheroes as a
Yeah.
whole, like from start to where it is today, and it kind of tries to take it from like an outsider's perspective, to like just a person on the street who's seeing all these things happen, and you like, it's really a big commentary on how just superheroes themselves have developed, and it's like super meta in that way, I guess.
Yeah.
And I kind of wanted to have that in my story as well. So there's lots of hints of how we perceive superheroes and how we see them. And so some people will see them as celebrities, some people will see them as like godly figures that we should aspire to be like. And then ultimately they're
Right.
just people, right? Like they're
Yep.
just ordinary people trying to do what they think is right. And so
So I also see that you're developing is how to a correct terminology for the
yeah,
yeah on the Google
yeah.
Doc.
Yeah, so that originally started as just a guide for myself when I was hiring my artist and the colorist. And so I wanted to make sure that every page that they sent me, I was comfortable with. But like since I'm not like an especially good artist myself, and I'm definitely not a colorist, I built a little guide that would be like, okay, I check for these things, make sure all these things are in the page. Like there's good focus points, like it guides the eye through the page, that kind of stuff. And then I thought, well, maybe other people would be interested in this kind of information too. So I kind of expanded that, and it really like blew up. Now it's over 50 pages of just notes and things to watch out for the entire process of making comics, from literally the start where you just have this one idea to the end where you're trying to like market it and print it and set and distribute it to people.
That's really interesting. I took a MOOC, one of those online classes where the professor had a reading list, and I started looking through it. That's where I'd learned about the Eisner book,
Yeah.
and God, I can't remember the name of the book actually. You have it on your list, the guide, the Where's Waldo looking dude.
Oh, Scott McCloud.
Yeah, those are two
Yeah.
pieces of I guess I'll call them literature. They're great for
Yeah.
how to actually read comics.
Yeah, I think those two books are like really they've been a huge influence on me in my early career, and just kind of understanding like the potential of the comic book medium, and like what you can really do with it if you use it to its limits, which I think that comics themselves have really just really been relatively unexplored, at least compared to like movies where you see like everyone goes and watches movies and everyone's constantly making movies. But like comics, like how many people read comics? Like how many people assume that comics are just superhero stories, for example, but like really comics are just a medium. And like the books by like Scott McCloud really just emphasizes the potential of what you can do with just a medium. Like you can tell all these crazy diverse stories. Like you'll see stories like one I'm reading right now, it's about the Iraq War. And how many people would think that, oh, that doesn't sound like a comic, right? Like you imagine like Iron Man and Captain America or like Superman or something. But yeah, it's just a medium.
I read only one based in the Iraq War. It was about lions in a zoo.
Yeah.
The lions were starving and they had to escape. I don't even know if I finished it, but man, it's some amazing stories that you can portray with this medium.
Yeah.
I wanted to write a story. I really do love it. I do think it's interesting that back in the day it was Dick Tracy, you know, yellow hat because that was the ink they could use in the newspapers, you know, the Phantom.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Prince Valiant. I mean, these are just like the beginnings of what we have today. And now we have Guardians of the Galaxies in the movie theater.
Yeah.
People are spending $1 billion to watch these 2-hour things.
Yeah.
Based on comic books.
And what's super interesting to me about like the comic medium is that how small of a community it is right now. Like I would go recently, I went to like a comic expo and I just met like the creator who wrote one of my favorite comics. And you just go and you just talk with them. And in this one of the chat groups I'm in about comics, one of the guys who I read and watch on YouTube, he makes really, really good colorist tutorials, just popped in and it's just like, oh, hi. Just right there, just chatting with this guy that I read his comics and I watch all his videos. It's such a small community. And
no, it's really crazy that they're invisible too. Like they can walk down the street and just be regular people, but they've influenced $1 billion movie. I mean, $2 billion movies. I mean, they're influencing fortunes and they're just normal people.
Yeah.
Steve Ditko, right? The guy who basically invented names that we see in the beginning. He just lives in a place in Manhattan.
Yeah.
You can ring his buzzer. He'll bring you up to his apartment and open the door and have a little chat with you for a second, probably curse you out, but you could probably see him for a moment if you want.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's incredible.
That's what I really love about the medium. It's just such a good community. And like, just no matter where you are, like online or just in person, like people are so willing to like help you out and like share your ideas and their ideas. And yeah, I love it.
I wonder what's going to happen going forward, though. Like we were talking a minute ago, your connection's a little better. I was wondering about the audience, though, in terms of the paper, in terms of the store, the brick and mortar stores, in terms of, you know, even libraries in general, they're struggling nowadays. I talked to a lady who's in education, and you know, she's saying libraries are going to go into the maker spaces. You know, people are going to go into libraries and build things together. What is the audience for comic books going forward? Was that a train?
So that's a tough question to answer,
right?
Like,
I mean, if you could answer the question, if you have a definitive answer for it, you go ahead and pocket the green. You're good to go.
Yeah.
Or the loonies in your case.
I'll put my solution right now. Yeah. It's hard to say. Like, I think that I can't see like the brick and mortar stores going away completely. Like, I think there's always going to be the demand like in the communities. But yeah, it's definitely, you can see like stores are like really struggling. Like there's like even the chapters in my city, it's just boom, it's gone because just people aren't going. At the same time, you see places like Amazon where you can just buy the physical copy online. That place is like flourishing. It's booming right now. So I don't think there'll ever be a stop in demand for physical copies. But maybe
just to make a quick comment about the brick and mortar, you walk in, they're dirty. You know, there are cardboard boxes stacked up. The guy behind the counter groans at you like you're disgusting, and you know, you got the people popping zits sitting at tables. You don't know what they're doing, but they're groaning at you too, like they're gonna pop up and beat you or something.
I don't know what comic store you're going to, but I think you need to find a new one.
All right. I don't. But Amazon does make it easy. But
Oh
Amazon
yeah.
is kind of turning, evil in a way. They're kind of taking the humanity out of things.
Yeah, it's true. Like there's like the social interaction, like the hand selling of your book. It's like abstracting away to just clicking a button and then there it is.
I mean, you talked about conventions, and conventions are really the coolest thing in the world. We got New York Comic Con up here. I love it. I love going. It's so much fun. And I sit online and I wait for the lottery, to come up, and I hit refresh, and it's sold out. I
Yeah.
can't go.
Yeah.
I don't know about Vancouver. I don't know if it's that bad, or the Emerald City Comic Con. I don't know if it's that bad over there, but it's impossible.
Yeah.
You gotta have,
I mean,
money, a lot of money.
Yeah. In Vancouver, there's still like a pretty big scene. Like there's like a Van Expo, which happens once a year, and yeah, I always try to go to that because it's so cool. Like just the community and how.
But how hard is it to go? Is it difficult, or can you actually still get tickets?
You can get tickets, but I'm pretty sure they sell out pretty quick. Like I always buy mine in the first few days, but yeah, it's just crazy to see how inspired people are just by the medium and just by the stories. Like you get like all these cosplayers, right?
Yeah.
They're just like dressing up. And,
yeah.
Like, it's just how much effort they put into it just for a character that somebody wrote. It's really interesting.
But for somebody like you, though, it's a business opportunity, is it not?
Oh yeah, totally.
When you go to a Comic-Con, lay it out for me. When you go to a Comic-Con, what do you do?
Like if I'm trying to
What's your
sell my
intention?
comic?
No, yeah, do you have a plan from day one, or you just kind of have you actually put something together yet, or is it kind of still off into the future?
Yeah, well, I mean, if I were to try and sell my comic at this point, it's a little hard because I don't really have a physical thing that people can see, right? It's still in development, but I've seen lots of people.
You sold me a little bit, didn't you?
Yeah.
I mean, I have you on my show based on what I've seen.
Yeah.
And talking to you, just that brief little moment on that, where that, what is it, Discord server. I talked to you for that 1 second and you sold me.
Yeah.
I'm like, this dude's interesting. If I had money, I'd say, come on, let's develop your thing. But
yeah. And on that,
it only takes a second, right?
That's true. Like I've seen people literally going around just with an iPad or something, and they're like, hey, this is the pages I've got so far. This is my pitch. If you want, you can sign up to my email list and I'll send you updates. I'll let you know when it's done. And I've seen that totally work for people. Like, and they don't even have a finished comic, right? They're just trying to get people interested in their topic. And so, yeah, that could totally work. I've seen it work.
I do think you have something. I mean, just your idea of, the 50-page Google Doc that you have sold on there. If you could just, you sold me on it. Yeah. So you go to Comic-Con. What do you think the thing is? What do you do? Do you have an iPad?
I mean, I have a tablet.
Is that appropriate?
Yeah, I think it totally is. I've seen even people at booths who are selling their books. They have their tablet out, just open, so that people can subscribe to their email lists. Because, again, back to that. I think that's the number one way that people are gonna get people buying their books online, right? People check their emails all the time. Like you're way more likely to read an email than you are to see a tweet floating by in your news feed of just massive tweets. Maybe you won't even see a tweet, but you're pretty much guaranteed to see an email, right?
See an email. Absolutely. It's so true.
Yeah. But I've seen a lot of people make little mini comics, 8-page comics that'll just say, hey, here's a little taste of what I can do. And then from there you pitch them the big comic. And the main thing, yeah. So there's tons of approaches. Even if you don't have your main comic or whatever you're trying to do to sell yet, people find all these creative ways to just kind of.
There are a number of little tiny comic strips that I'm in love with right now on Reddit. That the person that does the Chief O'Brien, and do you know the one I'm talking about?
Chief O'Brien.
Yeah, they just do this. Chief O'Brien. He does. He's in the transporter room. Every single comic, he is basically. I don't know. Ennui basically is all Chief O'Brien is in this comic strip, and I'm just basically cracking up the entire time. Love it. Well, I try to get that guy on the podcast.
Star Trek thing.
little Star Trek thing, but you know, he's just ennui. His life sucks, and it's just hilarious. I love that. The Oatmeal guy, you know, he did Exploding Kittens, and you know, I've never even seen one of his comics. I played his game one time. I love him now.
Yeah, it's great.
Doesn't
I mean,
take
that's all.
much.
Yeah, that's all it takes. Like just that one little hint of like, hey, this is something interesting that you might be interested in, and then people are like hooked right away, right?
I'm a fan.
Yeah.
You told me one thing in a chat room. I'm a fan. You know, I can't wait for you to be successful because I'm a fan now.
Yeah.
Nobody's looking to get sold. You know what I mean? You don't need to sell your friends and family because they love you already. What you need is like 50,000 people that they want to be fans of people. They want people to be successful, but I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah, it's about.
Nobody's going to give it to you. You got to find that. You got to find that thing,
definitely.
that itch that's hidden, and scratch it for people.
Yeah, definitely.
So what's up for you? You're working hard. You're a coder by day. You're a comic book artist by night. Or no, you're a writer by night.
Yeah.
Are you doing fiction at all? You're writing a novel, or is it just the comic books right now?
For now, it's just the comics. I've had a whole bunch of ideas of things that I've wanted to write. I think if I did anything at this point, it'd be short stories, just because this comic has been taking up a majority of my free time. I love to just write in general though, so I have a few short stories planned, and actually I think it's for December. There's a submission where you can submit short stories in a competition, so I'm hoping to get something done for that. I have a bunch of stories that I have to pick and choose from, but yeah, I'm trying to keep busy writing.
No, these are stories that you've actually put down, or these are stories that you hope to put down one day?
Yeah, I haven't fully written them. They're just ideas at this point, little outlines. I'm sure lots of writers kind of just get write, and then you just write that down in your to write list or whatever people do. I just have a backlog of ideas.
I would just recommend. Well, what is your schedule like during how does your writing week work? Because I know you have a job. Do you work on a comic every single day?
Yeah, I try to. I try to have a pretty strict schedule. So I'll come home from work, and I've gotten pretty good at kind of just switching into comic mode or just writing mode. And I would say, okay, I'm gonna write for whatever hours that day, and I just do it. It's not about how much I get done, or some days I'll just be in a funk and not be able to finish as many pages as I would on a regular day. But as long as I put the hours in, as long as I'm progressing a little every day, then I'm happy.
Yeah, and that's important. As long as you're working on your main project, you can balance stuff. I mean, you could juggle projects, but that's the most important thing. Is getting your main thing done.
And I tell a lot of people like, hey, my schedule is I wake up at 7 a.m, go to work, come home, then I write till 12:30, and then I go to sleep. And people are how do you do that?
How do you do that? I just want to sleep all the time, but I have twins. They just suck the soul right out of me.
Yeah. I imagine having kids just ruins your productivity.
No, I love my children.
Yeah.
So when is it gonna? What is the schedule? What can I look forward to here?
Yeah, so I'm hoping to, within a couple months, have the first issue out online for free. And then from there, we're going to do a Kickstarter for physical copies right off the bat. And I wanted to have the before Kickstarter, just so people could kind of read it, get over it, look it over, and really realize for themselves whether or not they like it. I don't want to be like, hey, here's my book, buy it. I want people, because I think the book itself will sell itself if people are interested.
Every time I tell my wife about Kickstarter, she's always asking me, who are you going to ask to be a part of your Kickstarter? And it's it just breaks my heart immediately, but I know she's absolutely right. Nobody. I'm not going to ask anybody.
Yeah.
I don't know. Kickstarter. And I always think Kickstarter, they always say family and friends, no, it's not going to work. This guy, he's doing raccoon penis bones.
Yeah.
And he's trying to raise $90,000 or something. I swear to God, that guy will probably sell out his Kickstarter. What stupid idea, and he's probably gonna pocket whatever he wants.
Yeah,
And he didn't even
yeah.
do anything.
I mean, people are you just gotta find the people that are interested in what you're in, and once you do that, then
Yeah, I guess. I guess. Um, so what haven't we covered that you think we should talk about?
um, I just I want to. I've been a lot of the time I run into people when that I have to tell them what I do in my free time, and
Mm-hmm.
like people, I'll tell people, oh, I write comics, and usually people will like their opinions are varied. They'll be like, oh, what? Or some people will be like genuinely interested, right? And but what I really want people to take away from comics, or what I've been doing is I want people to realize that it's not just one thing. It's not just, hey, this is superhero stories or this is whatever. It's a medium, and you can do whatever you want with it. And I think it's totally underutilized right now. And I've been looking for ways to get people more interested in it, because I know people would be interested. Like my friends, they'll say a whole bunch of my friends started reading comics ever since I told them that I write, because they're like, oh, what are you writing? And I'm like, well, and I'll tell them about my story. And I'm like, oh, that sounds interesting. And I'm like, hey, what movies do you like to watch? And they'll say, oh, I like a Mission Impossible, or I like James Bond, whatever. And I'll say, hey, this comic is exactly like that. Read it. And then they'll say, okay. And then they just like it, because all it is it's just a medium to tell
Yeah.
stories. Like the stories for everyone. You just got to find the stories that you like.
Jeffrey Dahmer's biography is a comic book, and it's really good.
Yeah. Like,
It's really good.
Yeah.
I mean, basically, you name it, you could do it in a comic book, and if you do it well, it's so readable, readable.
Yeah, totally.
It's just it is a great medium, and I want to talk to more comic book writers and artists because it's fascinating. My brother is a comic book devotee. I'm not necessarily, I'm interested because I got my degree in creative writing, and this is a form of creative writing.
Yeah.
I would love to write a comic book. I would love to sit down and do a comic book script and then have an artist, draw my ideas. But I don't think I could do a Stanley. You know what I mean? I don't think I could say, hey, just go ahead and do whatever you want. I would be a freaking Hitler about everything. No, I want the smoke like this. And then the artist would murder me and bury my body someplace, and my comic would never get written. That's why I write novels and short stories, because I'm good in a dark room at 3 o'clock in the morning, not, working with random strangers off of Reddit.
Oh yeah, totally. And there's lots of like comic writers that are like that. Like if you ever read a script by Alan Moore or something.
Oh man, I hear he's crazy. Oh really?
Yeah.
Do you have any like scripts from him?
Oh yeah, totally. There's
oh
some
man.
online.
Could you send me an email, like link-wise?
Yeah, definitely. I'll share that with you.
I would love to read some of his work. In fact, I'd share some of the links for his scripts on the show notes. I'd be totally down to read some of that stuff.
Yeah, totally. I there's what's also really good about comics is there's like really good resource lists. So there's one website. I got this one from the Making Comics website, but I could be wrong about that. It's just a list of scripts by they're like Batman scripts or like other superhero scripts, or like Spider-Man scripts, or like Punisher scripts, like whatever. And there's just done by like Sandman by Neil Gaiman, like scripts done by like really, really famous people and really, really good writers. And you can just look over them and see their style and see how the artist interpreted that. And it's just awesome to be able to like see those steps and how they brought it to life.
That's neat. And man, you teased me a little bit. You gave me I follow a bunch of YouTubers and blah blah blah. I want to know who you follow, so maybe I can check out some of their stuff too.
yeah, definitely. I'll share a massive list of all the things that I follow. Actually, I keep
that would be cool.
In my guide, the how-to guide, I put all those lists in right at the start, like all the places I follow, all the podcasts I listen to, the videos I watch, because I think they're super awesome resources just for anybody who's doing any kind of writing. Like I listen to a podcast that's like Writing Excuses, and they have like Brandon Sanderson on that, and I find that just so super helpful. Like, and even the comics specific ones I listen to, like be applied to just people writing in general.
Oh yeah.
Right. Like,
one of my problems with conducting the show is that I fly all over the place. Anytime something tickles my fancy, I'm like, oh, let's talk about this for a second. And I wanted to ask you, what were you going to do with your guide? What were your intentions with it?
I've talked to a few people, and people are like, hey, you should totally publish this, like sell it on Amazon or something. And I've thought about that. But what I really wanted to do with it is I wanted this to be a resource for people, like for anybody. And I wanted it to be something that's easily accessible and something that would be free to use, because I don't want to say, hey, you have to give me $10 to gain this knowledge. I want to really encourage development in writing and for anybody. And I think that I don't want to charge someone for the knowledge that I have. I want people to gain that knowledge and increase, like, make better stories. And I think that's a good thing for comics as a whole, right? So if, like, there's really good stories in comics, people are going to want to read them. And that just does, as a whole, me included. But
yeah,
I think it's really a collaborative medium, and like I really want to encourage working together as opposed to competitively, like, my comic sells and yours doesn't. Like, I want to make all the money. I want to steal.
I'm gonna beat your comic into the ground. I'm gonna grind it under my boot heel. No, if your comic does good, my comic may do good. I want to know how your comic does good. What succeeded for yours might actually help mine do good, because I mean, if there's a market for yours, there's a market for mine. Just because they spent $2 on yours doesn't mean they had, don't have $2 for mine. That's something like that. Yeah, man, I could totally see your guide being a YouTube show or a podcast or something. It doesn't have to be necessarily a book. Teaching people is just a great. There are so many outlets out now that you could reach people, and if you reach people, they might be willing to reach into their pockets and provide. I don't know.
Yeah, definitely. Like, it's like going back to one of the original things we said. Like it's not that what we're going towards any specific medium. I think that there's just a whole bunch of different mediums now available. Like, there's podcasts, there's websites, there's comics, movies, whatever. Like, it's just becoming more and more accessible to people for different ways. And I think that's just a good thing, no matter what. So.
I talked to a guy in Japan just recently. We had a really great conversation, and his idea is a Wikipedia style medium where you're reading a story and it has links to other things in it, and within those links you might have different things, like a movie or a comic book or just a regular biography of some kind, a character within the story. I mean, I do think the future doesn't have to be just monodimensional. It doesn't have to just be a movie that you go to the theater and see, or something that you click on. It has to be a television show with 10, 15, 16, 24 episodes. It could be, multi-dimensional. I think that's very fair.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I've seen, like, comic strips like Cyanide and Happiness, where they're starting to integrate little gifs, little movies, shorts into their panel strips. So, like, one panel will be one of the characters just animating, like, running or something. And so it's, like, really, like, combining the mediums, and, like, I think it's just awesome. Like, we're, like, starting to achieve the potential.
So now you're not just a comic book writer. You're not just a comic book artist. Now you're an animator. You're using, you're now a coder. You've employed 4 people instead of just 2. Yeah. It's really cool, because there are a lot of people out there desperate to create. You don't really have a place, and you're providing different places for them. It's really cool. It really is fantastic.
I think it's
exciting.
It's awesome. It really is exciting just to see what we'll think of next and what we'll come up with. And we're still just coming up with new mediums, like, as a whole, like, entire mediums to display stuff. And
it's all because of the internet too. I mean, this thing where we get together and I can talk to some dude in Vancouver. And I think that's really, really fantastic.
Yeah, totally.
And I don't know, man, I want to keep in touch and make sure that we find out what's going on with you. And I think I follow you on Twitter, and now I'm following you on Facebook, but Facebook doesn't do me any good because I don't really mess with it very much. But send me emails, send me updates, anything you want. Let me know what's happening with the comic book. Let me know the book.
Yeah.
Let me know what's happening with when you go to the expo. See if you get an email list. Keep me on your email list. Keep me updated, and we'll have you back on the show. And before you do your Kickstarter, at least, and we'll talk again.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, awesome. I would appreciate it.
Did we forget to mention anything right now, or do you want to mention anything before we let you go?
I don't think there's anything specifically I would have.
All right. Well, Evan Waterman, thank you so much for joining us today and talking with me. I really appreciated the conversation. You were great.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
No, man. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
And that was Evan Waterman. I hope you all got as much out of that conversation as I did. And next up on my conversations, I did get to sit down with one of my mentors from University of South Florida, Kerry Galomch, to talk about directing for the stage, what he's been up to, what his hopes and dreams are going forward. He's been teaching for the stage down in Florida. It was a great conversation. So, yeah, check that out. Brian Yellow, Twitter, www.brianyellow.com. And if you have any questions or comments, want to be on the show, shoot me an email. The best one right now is me@brianyellow.com. All right, have a great day. Thanks a lot for listening. Bye-bye.